Well, good morning. We are in chapter Bet, Perek Bet, in Sefer Shmuel, and the second part of the chapter. The first part we said it was a song or the prayer of Hannah of gratefulness, thanking God, and we saw it's more than that. It's also a philosophical lecture about the world, about how the world works with the guidance of Hashem, etc. And now the story continue in Hannah making her promise come true. So she said she's going to bring Shmuel to Bet HaMikdash, and that's what she did. After she brings him, she returns with her husband. And this is the first verse. It says, and then Elkanah, here in parentheses, and Hannah, it doesn't say in Hebrew, and Hannah, we assume that it's together with her. And Hannah went home to Ramah, and the boy entered the service of the Lord under the priest Eli. Was he the only one who was doing that? There was something the new that Hannah invented. Everybody could bring his son to the babysitter of Elia Cohen, that Elia Cohen babysit her son. What does it mean she brought him and left him there? It was something common. I don't know. Nobody, I didn't.
It's only Levin.
Only Levi, but could you bring your child? Could you bring your child and leave him there? It doesn't say because it's Levi, because she promised. She said she made a promise, and she brought him because she made a promise, not because she was a Levi. Maybe it's only Leviim. Maybe it was something that many people did, few people did. It's not very clear here, but it says that she did, and she started working in Bet HaMikdash in a very young age, as a child, as a little child. Now, the structure of the chapter is a little bit strange. I would say that after verse Yud Aleph should have come what it said in, I will read you verse Yud Chet, 18. It says, Shmuel was engaged in the service of the Lord as an attendant, girded with a linen ephod. His mother would also make a little robe for him and bring it up to him every year when she made the pilgrimage, Aliyah Regel, with her husband to offer the annual sacrifice. So this is like the natural continuation of what we said before, right? We said that he was brought and he was serving Hashem, and his mother brought him all that. And then you see, Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife and say, may the Lord grant you offspring by this woman in place of the loan she made to the Lord. Then they would return home. For the Lord took note of Hannah. She conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters. Young Shmuel, meanwhile, grew up in the service of the Lord. So this is the story, but between the first verse and the verses here that speaks about how Shmuel grew up in the temple and what his parents did, there is other paragraph that is a totally different topic. The sons of Eli, Hofni and Pinchas, that were mentioned in the third verse of this chapter, it says there that when Elkanah came to Shiloh, the priests there were Hofni and Pinchas. And here, suddenly it speaks about them and about their sins, which again looks out of context. It's important, part of the story, but it should have come after finishing the story about Shmuel, what Shmuel did in Bet HaMikdash. Now, let's read these verses. Now, Eli's sons were scoundreless. What does it mean? Bad people. Yeah. Bli Ya'al, together, is one word that may be translated as wicked. Literal meaning of Bli Ya'al is useless.
We saw this, I think, in Avimelech, in Sefer.
Yeah, that he took Bli Ya'al, people that were criminals. Yeah, anyway, we saw Eli in the former chapter as a Kohen Gadol and as the leader of Am Yisrael. But now his son apparently were very bad. Now the verses describing them in a very, very severe words. Chachamim wanted to soften it a little bit. They said it's not like literal understanding, but the phenomenon of great people with bad sons is not unique to Eli. We saw that with Avraham and Ishmael, Yitzchak and Esav, and other cases we will see, Bezrat Hashem, in Shmuel Bet about the sons of David, and the sons of Shmuel himself also, they were considered as good leaders. We will see all of that in the future, but now here, the verses describing them in a very negative way. And it says, why, they said, first of all, they were scoundrels, scoundrels, wicked people. And then, lo yadu et Hashem, they paid no heed to the Lord. Lo yadu, in Hebrew meaning, they didn't know Hashem. What does it mean they didn't know? They ignored him, they didn't care about him. Yeah. What does it mean? And it's describing it now. This is how the priest used to deal with the people. When anyone brought a sacrifice, the priest's boy would come along with a three-pronged fork while the meat was boiling. And he would thrust it into the cauldron or the kettle or the great pot or the small cooking pot, and whatever the fork brought up, the priest would take away on it. This was a practice at Shiloh with all the Israelites who came there. Now, why it's a problem? First of all, it's not clear what does it mean, Na'ar Kohen, the Kohen's boy, the priest's boy. What does it mean, boy? We can understand they had some servants, or we can understand this is Chofni and Pinchas themselves. They're called boy because of their behavior. And also Na'ar, we will see the word Na'ar, boy, is also mentioned related to Shmuel, and it's also in the Torah about Yeshua. It says that he was Na'ar, Mesharet Moshe. So Na'ar can be meaning, boy meaning can mean server. Someone who serves someone is called Na'ar, his boy, his server. So Na'ar Kohen, we can understand the servers of God, who are supposed to be servers of God, but they couldn't, they didn't know Hashem. They didn't do that. So what's the problem? The first problem here, halachically, that the Kohen cannot take. So we are talking here about korbanot, that the Kohen has a part of them. Which korban is it? It's korban shlamim. Now, the Kohen cannot take, this is like not halachic, but it's like the behavior. You're not taking, you are being given. In the Torah, when it's described, the korbanot, it says venatan, he gave to the Kohen. So the owner of the korban, the person that brought the korban, should give it to the Kohen. Here it says the Kohen took it for himself. Second, there are specific parts that the Kohen should take. It's not that he can take whatever he wants. And here it looks, again, according to the Pshat, that he took whatever he wanted, which is not allowed. It's the specific parts that he should take are the shok and the chazeh. Shok is the leg, chazeh is the chest of the animal. So that's what you should take, and not everything that you want. Other explanation of the sin was that they took from all, when it would be the big pot, the small pot, etc., the same amount as much as they wanted, and they didn't take into consideration the situation of the person who brought it. If someone bring a big korban, meaning he's rich, or that he has many people, and if someone brings something more, a smaller one, it may be because he's poor, maybe because he's small. So they didn't take that into consideration. They just took whatever they wanted without taking into consideration what is the situation of the person that was in front of them. So they were ignoring him. So we can understand it as a big sin, taking the parts that are not the right one, or as a smaller sin, as taking without permission or taking without consideration. So this is the first sin that is mentioned here. And then the second one, which look even more severe. But now, even before the sweat, this translation is very hard to me. What is sweat?
Suet. Suet is like
Sweat.
They have a lot of
fat.
this is English like Oxford English. A lot of books like that.
So it means fat.
Also the
Suet is what you feed birds. Like
No, so it is fat. That's the way you feed up to
Yeah, the fat. It's chelev in Hebrew.
fat. Other word.
Okay, I will continue with that, never mind. Yeah, so, but now, even before the sweat was turned into smoke, meaning before burning the part that should be, so the chelev is part of the animal, the fat, that is not allowed to eat today. That is the reason that they are, should be kashericized before kosher, before eating the animal. We're talking about cows or sheep, they should be taken before the chelev. Why? Because the chelev is a part that was sacrificed on the altar. So the order should have been, first, you are throwing the blood on the altar. After that, you are burning the fat. And only after that, you are cooking the meat, the rest of the meat, and then the Kohen should take his part. Here it says, even before the sweat was turned into smoke, the priest boy would come and say to the man who was sacrificing, hand over some meat to roast for the priest. So it shouldn't be roasted, it should be cooked. He wanted, I don't want you to ruin my meat. Give me as the way it is. I mean, give me fresh and I will do that. For he won't accept boiled meat from you, only raw. And if the man say to him, let them first turn the sweat into smoke and then take as much as you want, he would reply, no, hand it over at once, or I'll take it by force. The sin of the young man against the Lord was very great. Again, it doesn't say young man, it says ne'arim. Like I said before, nar can be meaning a server or someone who is behaving like a teenager, nar. Okay, so the sin of the young man against the Lord was very great. For the men treat
Samuel's sons?
what?
When he said Samuel's sons.
Yeah, no, this is Eli's son. Shmuel here is a very young child. We are talking about Eli's son. Eli was a Kohen Gadol who was criticizing Hannah, and after that he blessed her, and all the stories that we saw. Okay, so the sons of him, his sons, were the Kohanim that was in charge, and their behavior was described here in a very harsh word as big sins. Okay, the sin of the young man against the Lord was very great, for the man treated the Lord's offering impiously. Impiously, ניאצו האנשים את מנחת השם, underestimated, diminish, yeah, they didn't treat it correctly, in the right way. So all the sins here, we can say, are double. They are against the people, they misbehave against the people, they treat them in a bad way. And secondly, against God, because they use the sacrifice in a way that it's not according to the halacha. Which we know that when we are talking about the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the place of the holiness, every sin is become even greater and more severe. We see that with the sons of Aaron HaKohen, who did the wrong action in the Beit HaMikdash, in the tabernacle, and immediately they died. We will see that in the story later of the Aaron Kodesh, how people were dying only for looking on it or touching it. So here, behaving in this way generally is a bad thing. And secondly, when it's done inside the holy places, it's even worse, right? It's not the same. I mean, I don't know, using bad language inside the shul or in the street, right? Both are bad, but in the shul, it's worse. So this is, what? Disrespectful, yeah. So we will return to the sins of Eli, of the sons of Eli. But before that, I will answer the questions that I said before, as before. You see that the story about Shmuel is divided between before and after. Verse Yud Aleph speaks about Elkanah already returning and leaving Shmuel there. And then we have all the sins of Eli, of the sons of Eli. And then in verse 18, Yud Chet, it returned to speak about Shmuel and his mom. And it looks, of course, to see this contrast between Shmuel and his family and the sons of Eli. So this is a contrast. Shmuel is Mesharet et Pnei Hashem, Na'ar, remember this word again, boy, but meaning server. So Shmuel is dedicated to the Lord, is dedicated to Hashem. And he sees his purpose, Shmuel and his mother. He started, of course, from the education that he got from his mother. She wanted so much a child, but in order to give him to Hashem. And all the Shmuel did was in order to serve Hashem. And this is the reason. Now, if we continue reading these verses, we see there's a lot of emphasis about the clothes of Shmuel. Why is it mentioned? It's why that he was, again, how do you read this word, girded or girded? Girded. Girded with a linen ephod. What? And then he said, and his mother made him a me'il, a coat. How it translated here, robe, little robe. Robe is, yeah, it's here in Hebrew it says coat. So ephod and me'il are two of the clothes of the Kohanim. It says that he did it to him every year. Every year she went to the Bet HaMikdash, to the temple, not temple, the tabernacle. She brought with her the new ones, the new size, because he's going. Yeah, so ephod bad, we saw other people that were learning ephod bad. Yeah, so we have ephod, which is also for the Kohen Gadol, but we also have ephod as some kind of a shirt, of a robe, or something like that. That it was also made, for example, it says that David HaMelech, they also wore that. But again, so the coat, there are several things I want to say about it. I just try to make it organized. First of all, she brought him every year. What does it mean? He was growing up. Every year he need a new one, meaning he came there very, very young. We saw already that when when she stopped nursing him, she brought him. So she brought him, she think about him, she preparing him the coat. We said that it takes many hours of working to make clothes, and she brings him to him, but it's not she make to him, I don't know, hat or something like that. Coat, and he has a ephod. Later we're going to see that the coat, this robe, was very typical to Shmuel. How do we see that? In the end of the book, we'll see the story of Shaul going to Baalat Ha'ov. Do you know this story?
Oh.
Baalat Ha'ov, she was the one who was speaking with the dead. And it was not allowed according to the Torah, but Shaul was totally desperated and he didn't know what to do. So he went to her and she brought up Shmuel. And it says that old men wearing a coat. And then it said, and Shaul recognized him. So we understand that the coat was a sign, the symbol of Shmuel. Anyway, returning to the topic, Shmuel is replacing the rule of the Kohanim in the temple. Instead, they're serving themselves, they're taking care of themselves, they only want for themselves, while Shmuel is for God. So he is, in a symbolic way, replacing them and having their clothes, even though he's not Kohen. And we can see that also in the next verse, when it says that Eli blessed Elkanah and his wife to give her another son, another children, instead of this one that she loaned to Hashem, that she brought to Hashem. In the first chapter, we saw that Hannah was begging to have children, praying for them. Here, it doesn't say that she prayed to have more children. So we can say she was satisfied with the first one, even though, of course, she wanted more. But she was satisfied with the first one, and Eli was the one who was blessing her. What we learn from that, even though he didn't even grow up in her house. So again, we understand that all the purpose of Hannah was to serve Hashem, while all the purpose of the sons of Eli was to serve themselves. Right? So this is the contrast. The contrast is very, very strong here between Eli, the sons of Eli, and Hannah and Shmuel. And then it says that the result is that you will be blessed also for yourself. So Hashem gave Hannah other children, 3 boys, 2 girls, and Shmuel was with Hashem. Even though she wanted everything for God, and God gave her back for herself also, okay? So this is why they worked only for themselves, and we're going to see that Hashem, we're going to take everything from them. Yeah, so we talked about the similarities between Hannah and Rachel. She was the second wife, she was a loved one, she didn't have children, the other one has children, she was praying, she asked her husband to pray, her husband didn't do the work, she prayed for himself. We saw all these things that are similar. We will see also that Shmuel is similar to Yosef in some ways, but in the opposite way. Yeah, Yisem Hashem lechazera min haisha azot. This is, yeah, Boaz was blessed. Yeah. Yeah. Apparently that was the way people used to bless. Hashem will give you offspring by this woman. That in the Ketubah of the Sfaradim, I don't think it was Ashkenazim, it's written also in the beginning. There are some verses that say in the beginning, then there's like a blessing. Okay, so this is about the structure of the chapter, how it started and why it's continued like that. This is a big contrast between the Shmuel and his purpose as a server of God, and Bnei Eli and the way they behaved that were more focused on themselves, the benefits as Kohanim. Now, like I said before, Chachamim wanted to diminish a little bit the sins of the sons of Eli. There is a Gemara, even though it's a discussion between the Gemaras are different opinions. There is a Gemara that speaks about several sins mentioned in the Bible, and it says that it's not really a sin. So, for example, the sin of Reuven is described in the Torah as sleeping with the wife of his father, which is Bilhah. How you say, no, it wasn't like that. He did something else.
And also David and Bathsheba.
So David and Bathsheba, the Tanakh say clearly David made a sin. It's David himself said, I have sinned against the Lord. But Chachamim say, no, it wasn't a real sin because she was divorced. Never mind now. We're going to see that, Bezrat Hashem. And there are several of those, and among them also the sons of Eli. All this, if you look carefully on the verses, you can see it's not exactly formal technical sins. It doesn't say also, later we're going to see, it doesn't say that they were posh'im, but they were chotim. What is the difference between pesha and chet? Pesha is in purpose, while chet is by mistake. So maybe they were wrong about some of the details. So they didn't do that correctly in some ways, but it wasn't formally sin. For example, about the zevach, you are allowed to take before, you just don't allow to eat before. You can find ways to say that it's not a formal sin. So why the Tanakh is describing it like that? Again, we can say two reasons. We can say, first of all, it's for the measurement is according to the place where the place. I mean, you want people to go to the temple and feel respect and feel holiness and feel the glory of God. And then you see people that are only focusing on eating meat and misbehaving and treating people badly. So maybe it's again for the focus and for the places where it happened, or the circumstances of the actions that is described in a more severe way in the Bible. Second, maybe in the way it's described, it's emphasized more what is behind the scene. What is the problem here? The problem here is again putting themselves in the center, and maybe they did everything according to the halacha, and they learned Shulchan Aruch and the Talmud, and to say it was written after that, right? I'm saying they were learning deeply what is exactly the loud way to say, but they lost all the spirit of we are serving God here. What is the purpose of me walking in the temple, in the shul, in whatever? I'm the server of God. I'm not the server of myself. And they lost their focus. They lost their, so it's described in a very, very severe way, just to tell you, when you are coming to the temple, when you are doing this, must be your focus. Look on Shmuel. Be Shmuel. Don't be the sons of Eli. Okay? Even though maybe they did everything according to the halacha with a big bear and everything,
They
right?
learned Torah, but the Torah didn't teach them how to behave. There is something.
Okay, so this is about that. And now also the rule of Eli is also into here. And said after saying what we have seen, when we talked about Shmuel, the story returned to the sons of Eli. Now Eli was very old when he heard all that his sons were doing to all Israel, and how they lay with the women who performed tasks at the entrance of the tent of what? That wasn't mentioned before. And it sounds to me much more severe. All the women that went to the temple, they were lying with them, sleeping with them. Why it wasn't mentioned before?
Because it's not
After.
The real meaning, it's not.
Maybe it's up and after. And also, it doesn't say that they did that. They say, and the Lee heard about that thing that they did. So this is the fact that it was mentioned like, by the way, maybe it's the reason Chachamim did it. Say it's not. So for example, here, what is the explanation here? What does it mean that they slept? What women came to the temple? And what does it mean? נשים צובעות פתח אוהל מועד. צובעות is, the word צובעות here is like gathering or what? Here it translates as who perform tasks. It's not, it's bo, it's to come many people together. And it's also reminding us the word when they were building the temple, the tabernacle in the desert, it says that the women brought marot tzoveot. They brought mirror, mirror. What? When you see yourself, mirror?
Oh, mirror.
Mirrors.
Mirror.
The mirrors, they brought the mirrors. Chachamim say this tool that was used to be more beautiful, the material things was brought to bring, it was made by copper, so it was made for the altar, for the kiyov, for the sink, for the sink that it was in the entrance. Anyway, it reminds us these women that brought the most precious thing for themselves to the temple. Again, these contracts between people that dedicate to the temple or people that taking from the temple. Now, Chachamim explains that. So what women come to the temple? Usually they used to bring, usually it was an obligation to bring a korban after giving birth. Right? The korban yuledet. After giving birth, the woman had to bring korban. It was a simple, simple, the cheaper one was made by birds, not animal. So these little birds are not a lot of food, and also the Kohen doesn't eat them. One is for olam, one for chatat. So they were very, very low in the priorities. If you have a big fat cow, or you have a little pigeon, you say pigeon? How do you say this bird? Pigeon. Pigeon, yeah. So you have a big fat cow or a little pigeon. What do you prefer? If you only focus on eating, you will go to the cow. If you are dedicated to serve the public, you will go to the first one. Or even those, she's after birth, she is weak, she's a little bit sick, you will take care first of the women before someone that came to, I don't know, celebrate something else or bring korban chatat. But it wasn't important to them. So they left them there, and then there is a long, long line. There's a long, long line. So what they have to do, instead of just coming to the temple, make the sacrifice, and return to their home, they had to stay for the next day, and maybe for the next day. So according to Chachamim, what does it mean, נשים צובעות? שישכבון את הנשים, they slept with the women, they left them sleep in Shiloh instead of returning to their husbands. So it's considered as they were sleeping with them because they couldn't return to their husband. So without doubt, it's much less severe, technically, halachically, from sleeping with them, right? But the Torah, the Tanakh is describing it as sleeping with the women. Again, to show you the gravity, the severeness of their actions. Okay, so, but again, the fact that it was mentioned after that, by the way, maybe it's a little bit to diminish the level of the sin. Okay, so Eli receives the news and the rumors, and he starts speaking with them. We will see what he told them and why it was also problematic next week with Rat Hashem. And of course, the contrast continue. I just read verse number 26. Young Shmuel, meanwhile, comparing with them, grew in esteem and favor both with God and with men.
Oh,
Okay, so
you know how to behave.
yeah, so they misbehaved with the people and with God, and he was with a good esteem with people and with God. Okay. Shkoyach, thank you. I will say